Hi, my name's Tom Eley. I'm an occupational therapist and driving assessor and driving instructor, and I do a lot of work with PME, particularly with the Spacedrive equipment, and they've asked me to talk a little bit about the Spacedrive II system. This is the latest. Better? The latest German low-effort vehicle control system. So what this is a system that allows a person with very limited available strength to operate steering and brake and accelerator. And it's when conventional modifications are not enough. The PARAVAN system also provides an adapted gear shift system and access to secondary controls. But quite often we'll use different systems for the adapted controls and the gear shift. So who may it suit? As I say, it's people with inadequate strength and endurance to reliably manage brakes and steering control using the conventional equipment. So as you may or may not be aware, it's possible to modify conventional steering to reduce the required effort to turn, and it's possible to do things mechanically to decrease the required effort for braking and accelerating, but sometimes that's not enough. When it's not enough, we need to look at using the Spacedrive system. So just going back to that, so that could be people with a spinal cord injury, be it complete, incomplete, people with amputations. We've had people with cerebral palsy driving with this equipment. So it's not discriminatory regarding your disability, but it is about your physical strength. So typically with these systems, use the red light, you'll have, if that was working, an input. Oh, can I do that with a mouse? No. You'll have an input device. You'll have wiring which feeds the signal from the input device to a computer, and then from the computer an output to electric motors that either operate your steering for you or operate your brake and accelerator. And there's a display system, but I'll talk a little bit more about these different items as we go. So PARAVAN's a German company, and I think for around about 8, 9, 10 years they've been producing these systems, and in the last year they brought out their latest version of it. And there are a number of changes and improvements in the Generation 2 system, which I'll talk about as we go. So, with this system, there are a range of different input devices you can use. And the first one I'll talk about is what's called a Miniwheel. So this is just a simple disc with either a knob or a tri-pin, a fork, or whatever it is you require to reliably engage with it to enable you to rotate it to steer the car. So as you rotate this little wheel, the steering wheel rotates. And the required effort, as you'll see in the assessment van over there, is extremely low. These mini wheels are available now with Generation 2 with either 3 turns from lock to lock, comparable to a normal car steering wheel, or they're available with 6 turns lock to lock, depending on your abilities and requirements. Yeah, so got that covered there. It's also possible to steer these systems using a 2-way joystick. So it's a simple joystick arrangement where you move the stick to the left, the steering will turn left. The further you move it, the more it'll rotate. You let go of it, it comes back to centre, and you move to the right, it moves to the right. And with these systems, the faster you go, the less responsive they become. They're still quite sensitive, but there is a programmable curve to decrease the sensitivity so that when you're doing 100 kilometres an hour, it's still quite manageable. It's not too twitchy. I've got here just an example of a chap. This fellow's an incomplete quadriplegic, so he has heaps and heaps of tone. He's able to walk a little bit, and he uses a two-way joystick under his right hand with a custom handle to steer the car. Actually, he's quite interesting. He uses a mix of Spacedrive and other control systems to operate the car. So he drives, he uses his right leg to operate the brake, and that's all his right leg does. His left hand uses a simple Guido Simplex electric radial accelerator, and all of his secondary controls are in his headrest. He feels like a bit of a one-man band, but with that combination of stuff, he's able to consistently, safely, reliably operate the car. There's another, this is a new Generation 2 steering input device. This device requires you to effectively rotate your wrist either into supination or pronation to steer the car, and again, when you let go, it comes back to centre. And this is also a speed-dependent system. One of the applications I've seen of this is a modified system in the UK, which hasn't been done in Australia yet, where they have a tiller for someone with very, very weak upper limb musculature, using one of these mounted in the centre to steer the vehicle. This installation in Australia presents some registration difficulties because it doesn't have a steering wheel. These vehicles are generally set up so that a person without a disability can easily drive the car. It only takes a few minutes to swap it from the Spacedrive controls to the standard conventional controls. So if you delete them, as they've done with this tiller system, you need to apply to the regulatory bodies in your state for conditional special registration. And that system hasn't yet been approved or tried in Australia. That's not to say it can't be done, but yeah. So which devices you use really depends on your ability and your strengths. And there's a range of them, and we work our way through them during an assessment to establish the safest, most reliable way for you to operate. So a mini wheel, for example, requires quite a bit of shoulder movement. If a person doesn't have good shoulder control, they may be better off with a joystick type of system. Okay, this is another new Generation 2 system that's now available, and that is for steering with your foot. So if you rotate your foot in this device to the left, the vehicle goes left, and if you rotate your foot to the right, the vehicle goes right. And it's quite a compact device, and it expands where foot steering can be used. To date, foot steering has required quite a complex mechanical system, a large disc on the floor of the car, relocation of the pedals, constraining the vehicles you can actually use to use foot steering. This will open that up a bit more. So that's just an example of someone's foot. This is the Fourway Joystick, which combines steering, braking and accelerating all onto one stick. It's a good, effective system, but it is quite challenging to learn. And it's not my first port of call when I'm assessing people. However, there are many people who drive successfully with it, and if it's what you require, it's what you require. All of these systems with the Spacedrive II now are very adjustable. So we can alter how sensitive the brakes are, and we can alter how sensitive the accelerator is, and we can alter how sensitive the steering is. And this is altered as people are learning, depending on their disability, to come and set the vehicle up so that they can consistently, reliably, safely drive. We'll just move on to the brake and accelerator inputs. So these are separate devices for brake and accelerator. This first one is a change from the early system. The lever is pushed just forwards for brake and pull backwards to go. The old system actually moved in quite a large arc, which created a bit of a problem for some people. So this is potentially a better system for a lot more people. If you've got limited range of shoulder movement and you're relying on your hand movement, it may be better to use a two-way joystick for brake and accelerator. So I want to talk a little bit about the hardware. This is a shot of one of the computers. This would be a computer for either the brake system or the steering system. These computers in Generation 2 are manufactured to extremely high standards. The electronics in here are manufactured to the same standard that is required for pacemakers, where failure is an unacceptable option. There's no acceptable percentage failure for these circuit boards. These systems are dust-proof and waterproof. You can submerge them to a bit over a metre and they should not let any water in. All of the plugs are constructed to a very high standard so that there's no risk of accidental disengagement, and these systems have multiple redundant features within them, so that if some component fails, there are still always two other components that can take over and still do the job. So this is a bit of a diagram about how the system works. I might start by talking about the input signal, which comes from your hand control. So you might move the joystick to the left, and that sends a signal through into the computer, and that gets fed to 3 different processors, all of which are comparing and checking, any one of which is capable of doing the job. Those computers then take the settings that we've put into the computer to control how the steering behaves. And so that little central block represents the settings we put in the computer, and the 3 black blocks represent the output transistors that control the electric motors. So if any one of those fails, another one can take over and do the job. The motors themselves, there are 2 for each function. Either motor will do the job. So if one of the motors fails, the other one can take over and you'll still be safe. These computers have got sensors in them. These motors have sensors that feed back into the computers to say, hey, you've asked for this much movement, that's how much movement you've got. And they check that that's all correct and consistent. So that's a very quick overview of how that works. All of these systems have electric motors for operating the brake and accelerator, and electric motors for operating the steering. You'll notice there's actually 2 motors attached together on the one shaft to control the brake. In the braking situation, what happens, this roller moves around and applies the brake, and when you move the lever the other way to accelerate, it moves away from the brake and onto the accelerator. So that eliminates the risk of getting brake and accelerator on at the same time. It's actually impossible to do that. So this is a partly installed system, just to show you. If you look, the brake motor actually presses onto the brake pedal and gives you effective control of the vehicle. Similarly, there is an electric motor for the steering, and again there are two motors in there, and there are a series of sensors, 3 of them, to tell the computer exactly where it is. There's a gear that gets fixed and welded to the steering column, and this motor drives that gear to turn the steering wheel. So when you turn or move the joystick, the steering wheel actually turns in front of you, to the left or to the right. And again, there's an installation partly done. And that's the installation completed. That's an installation that was done again for a lady with incomplete quadriplegia who had no effective shoulder power. She had reasonable hand function and good leg function. So she drives her car with her right leg using the brake and accelerator, and she has, if you look here on the centre console, a little steering wheel for her steering. Try not to kick the microphone. And all the other controls are in the armrest on the door. So, as I said before, all of these functions, so your braking, your accelerating and your steering, are easily adjusted. So you can change the sensitivity to suit the person. So this is just an example of a brake curve, and the vertical axis is the pressure that's applied, and the horizontal axis is how far you are pushing the lever. And we can move around and change how it responds to suit you. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about redundancy and backup. And redundancy is, by definition, the duplication of critical components or functions of a system to form a fail-safe or backup. And I think it's essential that these systems have redundancy and duplication. So with Spacedrive II, as I said before, there's a triple redundancy. So all of the input devices, be they for brake, accelerator or for steering, have got 3 sensors in them. There are 3 lots of wiring that go to the computer, and within the computer there are 3 lots of processors, 3 lots of output transistors. So it is pretty well backed up. And obviously if any of the systems or any of the sensors are found to be out of range, alarms will sound. And as I said before, we've got dual motors for steering and for brake and accelerator. And we've got self-checking computers here. The other thing they have is so they've got a backup battery, so if there's a power failure, the vehicle can still be safely driven off the road. So if the engine fails, the alternator fails, the vehicle can be got off the road. They're tested extensively in Germany to get the necessary approvals for the whole of Europe, for America and for Australia. They're put onto a hydraulic test rig and shaken around for the equivalent of 20 million kilometres, which is substantial. Yeah. Okay, so we're running out of time. So we've talked about testing and approvals. They're approved in multiple countries. Interestingly, and I'll finish off in a moment, Mercedes are using the PARAVAN Spacedrive II systems in their driverless trucks and in their driverless cars. And there's a company in Germany called Worth, I don't know if you've heard of it, WURTH, who've brought a huge interest in PARAVAN. And I was reading their website, and they're interested in getting into the market of driverless cars, and this is the system that they're looking to use. So, we're running out of time? We're running out of time. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Has anyone got any questions for Tom?
Tom, at the outset, when somebody needs a system like this, is it a question of is it an engineering decision or a medical decision that gets the right answer?
Number one, if you're considering driving, you need a medical clearance. So that states that you meet the national medical guidelines for fitness to drive. Once that's been established, it's down to your functional ability. And there are no hard and fast rules, because it's not fair to say it is a fact that people with the same disability do not have the same ability. So the person would need to be tried. Once it's established the person can actually deal with it, the engineering is relatively straightforward. It's a proven path, and all of the regulatory authorities around Australia are comfortable with these installations.
Is there any other questions? Okay, one of the online questions was, are there any limitations with the types of vehicles you can modify?
The short answer to that question, if there is adequate space to accommodate the motors and the equipment, and the person that's going to use it can still get in and out and it's still usable, no. No, it is possible. There are some vehicles now that have got self-parking features, so that's a little electric motor connected to the column, so you can just let go and do its reverse parking. That needs to be taken out and disabled.
And the last question from online was, would you recommend that anybody thinking about modifying their vehicle speaks to somebody like PME before they do so?
Yes, PME are the approved agent by PARAVAN for Australia, and definitely need to talk to PME before you strike a blow.
Okay, thanks Tom, and thank you for your workshop today. Thank you.